Welcome to the Yoga Teacher Collaborative podcast, as you know, streamed live into our wonderful, supportive Facebook group. If you are listening on Spotify to the podcast, we are so delighted you are here. But make sure you come join the party in the Facebook group, the Yoga Teacher Collaborative Facebook group, because that is where we actually get to chat, support, celebrate each other, and have connection. So if you are new here, my name is Laura Green. I am a yoga teacher for over 15 years now, a teacher trainer and a business mentor for yoga teachers. My absolute passion is to support yoga teachers to thrive in both the business aspect, but always the continual learning in the skill and craft of being a teacher. And our sessions here split between the business and the honing your craft. And today's session is definitely honing your craft and expanding your craft. I am honestly very delighted with our guest speaker today. This wonderful lady I'm about to introduce you to is actually very new to me, introduced via a student of mine who's looking to do vocal specialist sound healing course. But as soon as I came across this lady and as soon as I completely geeked out on her website, and then of course realized we had colleagues in common, I felt so excited and I just wish to devour everything you do. I've seen you even have a weekly class, you have courses, you have workshops, you have trainings. So I would like to devour the lot, but to introduce our guest for today, I'm really going to try with pronunciation, but it's a beautiful Italian pronunciation because our guest used to be an opera singer as well. So it's going to have something in the name. Alexandra Rigazzi-Tarling.
Amazing. Well done. Well done.
So Alexandra is a vocal coach, a sound healer, a teacher and tutor at the College of Sound Healing, but also you have a master's in psychology as well. You seem to have so many strings to your bow. As I said, a former opera singer, you work with vocal specialists, you work with sound healing, you work with public speakers, a lot that you bring to the table, my love. Would that be fair to say?
Do you know, I think it's just life's journey, isn't it? You start in one place, and if I think a topic such as voice just takes you down so many rabbit holes, and once you're down those rabbit holes, you have to see out through, and then perhaps you come back. So yes, I would say there are many facets to what I do, but all encompassing voice with a healing perspective. So even a regular singing lesson, a regular, voice coaching session will still stem from that healing perspective. Even if that's not particularly noticeable in the session, that's where I work from. So yes, everything that I do comes from that personal development, well-being, healing perspective. And yes, many facets have developed over the years. I show my age now, so.
And I think that is true, isn't it?
Well, I'd just like to say though, thank you for your lovely introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here. And such, as I said, like you said, we've only recently got to meet each other, and it's just really lovely to be here. So thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Well, so we say the universe brings the right teacher at the right time. So today's topic is on your voice as an instrument. And, I run teacher training when we start right at the beginning, and my students have to stand up and teach from month one, a real class of my students. And the very first requirement, the only requirement month one, is to be audible. We start right at the voice because I always think voice is the modality through which everybody in a yoga class receives the transmission of teaching. Yes, they might visually learn. Yes, some teachers use touch. There's poetry, there's sequencing, but everybody is held in the container of the voice. Yet it can be the most terrifying part to begin with, to stand up and be audible. So I was kind of thinking through the journey of a teacher, and then the journey of our discussion is almost like step one is, can I stand up in a room full of people, project my voice, it not shake, it not give away that I'm nervous, And just can I start there? Can I be clear? Can I be audible? And then maybe as our confidence grows, we come to using the voice as a tool, as an instrument, like changing the tone, the pace, the inflection for guiding shavasana, guiding meditation. Then maybe we start to feel confident to share an om, to share mantra, to share chanting. And then there's that far end, which you guide people into, of actually using your voice in sound healing. That's definitely the bit of the puzzle I have not got to yet. I share singing, I share sacred song, I share mantra, but I'm a classical musician. So I have to have music in front of me. The idea that I could open my mouth and let sound out, well, that's just terrifying. But I think we each find each part terrifying to begin with. So if we were to start right at the beginning with just the confidence to speak, be audible, what are your thoughts there?
I think, if we're, especially if we're talking to yoga teachers, people who practice yoga, who spend a lot of time working on the body, on the muscles, on all of those beautiful poses, all of that energy that goes into that work. I think we have to first of all look at how much time we're spending actually working with the instrument of the voice on a purely physiological level, because I think there are all these incredible facets to voice on so many levels. But at the end of the day, it's a whole mechanism, a physical mechanism. And what tends to happen is the thing I hear, I probably hear it 10 times a day, is, oh, no, I can't sing, or no, I haven't got a very good voice, or no, I was told to, not to sing when I was at school because I
Yeah.
was bringing the choir out of tune.
Yes,
All
I
these,
was kicked out of choir. I was told my voice didn't gel. Yeah.
this is exact. Okay, so your
And
number
I can
one.
remember the man,
Yeah.
Mr. Cunningham.
Well, there you go. And it stays, doesn't it? It stays. You
Yeah.
remember the name, you remember the energy, you remember, and that's the sound healing part. So we'll just leave that there for a moment. But exactly that. So a lot of people have had this experience where, they just feel shame around their voice. They feel, I mean, just there's no confidence whatsoever. Or if there is, and they can sort of project the voice, you can hear a sort of, perhaps even a hardness in the voice, or yeah, or they can't speak at all. So I think first of all, you have to look at actually exercising muscles of the voice and sort of picking it apart and seeing what it is that's going on for you that might be causing, first of all, perhaps lack of volume or lack of ease or pain in your throat or whatever happens when you start to just speak and deliver sound. Um, and actually, a lot of things that happen are very simple. So, for example, if somebody is shy, if somebody feels that fear of standing up, one of the first things that will happen is the tongue will retract. So, if the tongue, it's sort of like the tongue has a little mind of its own, it's in there. The tongue pulls back and it blocks the space where the voice actually resonates. So, it's sort of like having a cork on a bottle, and you think of your pharynx here, the larynx is here, and the sound comes up and it's resonating in the back of the throat and that whole space, the soft palate. If your tongue is pulled back, I mean, you can try it now. If you just sit and pull your tongue back,
Mm,
a horrible feeling.
yeah.
It sort of jams everything down. Now, I can tell you that I see most people I see, probably 99% of the people I see, their tongue is in that position when they're coming to learn about their voice and to work their voice. And as soon as we start to look at these tiny little things, so the tongue is pulled back, and the next thing that suffers is the jaw. So if you pull your tongue back, straight away you tend to feel a
Mm,
tension in the jaw.
yeah.
Now, if you're nervous anyway, those are the first things that are going to go. They're the
And it's
first.
at the back of my neck.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible
Mm,
because that whole area, everything is interconnected. And then, of course, the larynx gets stuck. So then we force, and if we try to force the voice, then the muscles that are around the larynx, they constrict and we get tension. And then the whole thing just closes down. We think, oh no, I'm definitely not good. My worst fear has been confirmed and I shouldn't be using my voice.
mm,
So it's this sort of, they're tiny, tiny things, but actually what people need to be doing if they're fearing, even just standing up and speaking, first of all is looking at physiologically what's going on. Because as soon as you start to unpick that, and then you gain some awareness of, what's happening to your tongue during the day in certain situations, when you're driving the car, when you're picking kids up from school, when you're perhaps having confrontation, hopefully not, but perhaps you are, what's going on in that area? And then actually saying, okay, tongue is back. Hello, tongue. I'm aware of you now. I'm just going to let that come forward. I'm just going to create some space between my back teeth. Okay. And this could happen. You could do this 10, 20 times a day and you go, oh my God, I'm back in that position again. Okay.
Just
Let
like if I'm stressed, I might make fists or clench my shoulders. I've never thought what my tongue might do.
No, this is it. We don't think about it. We don't think about it. And it is really fundamental. It's just the basis of sounding, because if your tongue is in that position and your jaw is tight, it's going to feel awful. And if you try to sound through that, and let alone if you try to vocal tone or ohm through that, you're going to be causing a lot of strain on the voice.
Mm.
So that's just number one. So I'd say for people that are, having to stand up and do this, they need to start looking into their habits and how that's working with the voice. And, perhaps going to see a voice coach, so I'm just saying, okay, what's going on? What do I need to do? And getting a little plan of exercises and just a few things that they can work on to help release those muscles. So that's,
And knowing there is technique,
yes,
I just feel terribly sorry for my poor trainees throughout the years that I just say speak up, and then I say speak up again, and then I say speak up again, without really, with just me thinking it was a choice. Just take the volume knob and turn it up, or without actually thinking that there is something mechanical that is happening in the mouth and there is technique. And I guess just like I can go to the gym and strengthen a muscle, I can learn the technique, um, and not just mind over matter it.
exactly. And I think, and from that point, I mean, if you're very normal in that respect. Everyone that wants more volume will say, speak up, speak up. It's just the most normal thing. And why would you know any different?
Mm.
It is what it is. People don't necessarily know about voice. Um, so I don't think you're alone there, and I don't think you have to feel bad for that. It's just normal. And you're just sending a signal that says we can't hear you, so you need to do something about it. And that's part of learning, and
But
that's
if you've not taught someone how to do something about it,
fair enough. But at the same time, you can't do everything, can you?
no, but I can have you next year.
Okay. Fantastic. But yeah, so it takes people on a journey. So once they start to work with these physiological things, so if you start to unlock tension in the jaw and tension in the tongue, you might start to unblock, if you think of the body as energy, you might start to unblock areas of energy around that, because it might be that, because of the emotional state, the physical state has come into that tension. So if we start working with the physical, we start to affect the emotional. We don't even have to work on it from an energy perspective. We can go straight in the physical and it will start to
Yeah,
wind
yeah,
that. But the most important thing is awareness. It's knowing your attractor state. So your attractor state is this state that you literally are attracted to in your daily life. And that might be because, for example, English speakers, I mean, listen to me. I've definitely got tongue. I could put on my very authoritative teaching voice, which I wouldn't do because I'm pulling my tongue back to create that sound. Over the years, for me, it's been about releasing the throat, releasing the tongue, releasing the jaw, coming to a place where I don't feel that I have to put that authoritative sound on. And maybe for many years, I felt that that was required. So that's what
yeah.
I adopted. So that created the tension. But actually, now I know that it's okay. I can just speak, and if people want to listen, they listen. If they don't, they don't. But
Mm.
there's all of this stuff going on underneath. So it is unpicking that for yourself and just noticing, wow, yeah, my tongue is super retracted today. What's going on? How am I feeling? Who's around me?
Yes.
People projecting stuff on me. What's happening here? And this is where the journey of personal development comes. And through personal development, then we get to healing because you can't have one without the other, really. So, um,
So,
yes.
and then, so releasing the face, releasing the jaw, releasing the tongue. Um, and then I always say to my trainees with the Audible that we are fortunate that we are teaching yoga, and breath is the power source of the voice. So at any point we feel the lack of confidence, we can just come home to the voice. How much, so the breath, sorry, how much is it about the breath as well as what's happening in the jaw and the tongue?
I think that's a really good question, because actually you really need very little breath for vocalizing in any way, shape, or form. Even if you're singing a long phrase, if you're, into classical music and you're singing that long phrase, it's not about loads of breath, it's about consistency of breath. So, in a speaking context, yes, it's very important to use the breath to expand the body. Working with that diaphragmatic breathing, feeling comfortable with that expansion. But that's more about preparing the body and putting the body into a relaxation response, into a rest and digest. It's more about that so that you free up the muscles of the throat
Mm.
and all of the mechanism that goes along with it. So if we use a lot of breath, I mean, if I start to use a lot of breath when I'm talking to you, it's going to get very, very annoying after a while.
And that sounds tiring.
It's tiring, exactly. So it's actually more about vocal fold or vocal cord closure. If you're using too much breath, the vocal cords are about 3/4 of the size of a 5 pence piece. So if you've got loads of breath coming up against them, they're going to find it very hard to come together and close. So it is about discovering the breath for the body and the relaxation and the confidence and that expansion. We don't want to be up here. So when we work with belly breathing and we actually release the belly to breathe, the upper body releases down, the throat is released. If we're breathing here,
It's all tight in my throat. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So that's where the breath comes into it, really. There's a saying in opera singing, um, keep the breath away from the voice, that we're actually not using
Wow.
loads of breath, but
Mm,
we're learning how to control a very small stream of air to the voice.
mm,
So in terms of speaking, I would say the breath is incredibly important, but more for that expansive feeling in the body and to calm you down and to help you feel grounded. When you breathe and release the belly and release into the ribs, there's a sense of anchoring the body, feeling
yes.
that
Yeah.
sense of strength. The body's open, the breath is flowing within the body, where we're in a good position here to deliver to other people. The voice
Mm,
is released and so on. So for speaking, yes, it's important. Of course, we need breath because without breath, the vocal cords won't vibrate. So yes, you're absolutely right. The breath is the basis of it. But I would say that it's more about feeling that sense of calm and expansion in the body so that the
mm.
throat can start to release and then you can work from there back to the physiology again.
And there's two things that I noticed happen. The voice quivering with nerves. And I remember when I very first started to teach, I remember covering at a gym and they weren't expecting a cover teacher. And I remember I had to say, oh, hi, my name's Laura. Your teacher is away today. And my voice was shaking and I could hear the shake. And then as soon as it got to close your eyes, bring the awareness to the breath, as soon as I moved from me into I'm just sharing the teachings of yoga, my voice evened. But any advice for the quivering of a voice when speaking? I have another one to ask afterwards as well.
Actually, no, I think that's probably the hardest thing, the quivering, because this comes down, this is more than voice. This is more than breath. This is, you hit the nail on the head there. You said while you were explaining that you were the cover teacher, your voice was quivering as it was you. When you stepped into the role as teacher and you had that label, you were fine and you were working. And it comes down to our intention, it comes down to our self-belief, it comes down to all of those layers underneath the voice. And this is where we come to the voice as being a reflection of all that we are. And so when we start to work with voice and we start to work with that reflection, that mirror, I mean, it's just, oh,
Yes.
I didn't realize there was this nervous voice just quivering
Yes. And you
away.
can't hide it.
No, exactly. Um, I think there it's about being really honest with ourselves about, this is where journaling comes in as well. Okay, how am I feeling in this moment? Why am I feeling like this? So you're rocking up to a new place and a bunch of people you don't know, and there's a lot of judgment.
Worried they won't like me.
What if
Worried
they
I'm a
don't?
disappointment. I'm not their teacher.
Exactly, exactly, exactly that. So, the fundamental need of human beings to belong. It comes
Mm,
back to all of that. We want to be made to feel that it's okay, and that's where we build that strength. That's where we build that it comes back to the personal development. So I would love to be able to give some sort of technique for a quivering voice. But I would say,
Do this with your tongue and it'll stop shaking.
well, there's one thing I would say. I mean, I would say it's really, this is more about the mind than the voice.
Yeah.
But once you start working with the voice regularly, and feeling more comfortable with just working it as an instrument, I think that also, as we said, starts to work on underlying layers, and we start to notice things differently. We start to behave differently because of that. It comes back to the breath there. And one thing I can offer actually, coming back to my days as a performer, when we think about deep breathing, we tend to think about the inhale. And we tend to
Yeah.
think, so take deep breaths. So you're full up with all this air. But actually, in a situation where you know you've got to deliver something, but you're just actually concentrating on the exhalation as far as you can with that. So if I demonstrate it now and I exhale and I'm pulling my belly in, I go all the way to the end of my breath and then I breathe in. And I do that two more times. I'm exhaling a lot of that tension. I'm forcing my body into more of a relaxation response. And so that will help the quivering a little bit because it's just
Yeah.
bringing you into your center.
Yeah. So you could do that quietly before you began.
Exactly that. I mean, I used to stand on stage, next to the piano just before a recital would start, and I'd be going,
Yeah.
breathing out the air with a nice smile on my face. No one could see I was doing it, and then I was ready to sing, go. So
Yeah.
that is one thing I can definitely share.
Thank you. And the other thing I noticed before we finish this section is voice, and I think you're going to tell me it's just the same thing. It is the mindset healing is the voice tailing off. So the voice will come out strong, and then as the sentence goes on, it'll. I hear that a lot in my trainees, this tailing off voice.
Yeah, well, that can it is all going to be about what we've just talked about for sure, because it is about confidence. It is about that feeling of I'm happy to share this with you and that expression. But there is something that can be done here when you're talking and perhaps you've got a meditation or something you're delivering. Work with the text and focus on the vowels. So
Yes.
I begin to speak to you now with more emphasis on the vowels in the words. Everything slows down. And I'm not suggesting that you speak like that, but as a practice, take yourself away 10 minutes a day and work with some different texts, work with some
Yes.
meditations, some poems, whatever you read the newspaper, it doesn't matter, and look at where the vowels are actually placed in the words. Because even now, as I'm talking to you, I get really excited and there's so much I want to say, and I'm really excited to share this work. So, you know, but if I really slow down and deliver, the sound can flow through the vowels. And when we sing, it is the vowel that carries
Mm.
the majority of the sound, also the consonants, but it's the vowels. So we tend to get caught up with consonants, and that creates tension. So
Yes.
as soon as we start to speak, and then the voice starts to close down, and then we're back to where we started again, and then the volume drops. But
Yeah.
if we want more sound, we need to allow more sound through the vowels. And
And
so
the mouth opens so much more on the vowels than on the consonants.
exactly. And the consonants are very important, but that's probably too much to go into today, but I would just say that appreciation and that emphasis on looking at, wow, there's a vowel, and looking in the mirror when you practice this. Because another thing, people will come for sessions and we'll be doing this work, and I say, can you open your mouth a little bit more? I said, just think about, sort of open one finger, one and a half, and I say, oh, can you just give me a bit more? Oh, I am. And they're sort of here. I was like, no, you're not, definitely not opening your mouth. And I have a mirror in my studio, and I say, right, take the mirror, have a little look, and they, oh, my mouth's closed.
Mm. That's
Because
one of the things I say the most in kirtan is open your mouth.
yeah,
But again, there's so much mindset in that in opening the mouth.
exactly,
Um,
exactly. So you can sort of see where it all comes back to. This is why I can't teach voice singing, all of these. I cannot just teach that because there's this other part, hence the psychology.
yeah, there's no point in the technique if you are choosing to and swallow the ends of your sentences because you're physically coming into your
Exactly.
shell. You definitely made me think about two things with the vowels then. The first was just a side note of why I love Sanskrit so much, because so many of the Sanskrit vowels have the line over the top, which means they last double the length of time.
Yes.
And the language is physically making you elongate. Like I only just, my friend Sunita reflected back to me my pronunciation of a particular mudra this week. So I say Hakini mudra,
Mm.
but it actually has a line over the first A and it has a line over the final I. So it is Hakini. And those two lines require the vowel to be double the length of the
Yeah.
sound. Now
Mm.
I know Hakini is a goddess. And then when I hear the consonants and the short vowels, Hakini, the goddess isn't in there. But when I give that sound that the Sanskrit demands, it tells you this vowel is worth double the length. Hakini, suddenly the
Yeah.
goddess is there,
And
which
also,
is
if
incredibly.
I just add to that, with a language like Sanskrit, these were the sounds that were understood to have brought creation into being. The word became being, and these sounds actually stimulate reflex points in our mouth. So when we're the care that goes into this pronunciation is for a well-being level as well. But we've come to think of, the English language is derived from Sanskrit, but we've come to think of English as just something just we communicate with, that's it. But if we think of a language as sacred, and actually the what we're actually doing in the mouth, and all of the other effects it's having, I mean, particularly with the Sanskrit because it's so pure, but it takes us to a whole other level. So if we think about those words as something that's resonating for our health, for our healing, it takes us far away from the society we live in now. It takes
Mm.
us to a completely different level of being. And that
What are reflex points in my mouth? I do not know about this.
Oh, okay. So, well, if you think about reflexology, for
Mhm.
example, it's understood that there are acupressure points on the feet, and when these are stimulated, it stimulates the meridians that run through the body, the energy lines and the energy meridians. But we have reflex points throughout the whole body. And in the mouth, I think there are something like, I want to say 84 reflex points. And so it's them if you go for acupuncture, for example, they will work on certain points. And these points in the mouth are just as important as all the other reflex points. But in Sanskrit, all of the tongue positions, the retroflex are, all of these things send sound and sound vibration towards
Mm.
these acupressure points. So we're actually stimulating our energy lines I mean, if we're not into Sanskrit, not everybody's into Sanskrit, but whatever you're doing, you've got these points in the mouth. So even if it's just thinking, oh, well, it's a little bit of reflexology for the mouth, I'll
Mm.
make sure I use my vowels and consonants with a little more ease and yeah.
Yeah. And I
So
guess that's exactly what's happening in Om, where I've always thought of that as far as that internal ring philosophically,
mm,
that, I am internalizing it and ringing that sound within me. But I hadn't really thought about how you're taking the final vibration of Om and actually maybe physiologically there's something happening with a reflex point.
yes, well, I think because we tend to think of the physical as not being of energy, but the
Mm.
physical body is matter, which we know is still vibrating. It's just present here. It feels different to the subtle energy bodies, but it is a form of energy here in the physical world. So that resonance and those sounds actually to resonate the matter probably takes, more than resonating those subtle bodies. So yeah, I think it's almost
But
more.
that's the sound healing on so many levels. Not only are we talking about personal psychology of healing what stories are coming up through us using our voice, but then physically the vibration is healing you on the inside, let alone then the elevation of working as a practitioner and using sound to heal with others.
Yes, absolutely. And this is the one thing. So on the sound healing courses that I teach, the first part is all about opening the voice for your own healing, using exercises to get the voice to make you feel embodied, to feel that the voice is part of you rather than this sort of other thing that's somewhere up here, that's actually a whole mechanism in the body. And when we start to work with ourselves first, with the sound, we start to move our own energy. And then after that, we're ready to work as practitioners and other people. With the understanding as well that when we're sounding for other people, or, in some of the courses I teach, we're sounding over people's
Mm.
bodies, that when we're actually sounding for them for their highest good, in that, I mean, we're working with energy here. It's like Reiki, it's definitely moved over to that energy side, working
Yes.
with intuition and so on. But when we're working for them, the sound is coming through our mechanisms. So we are still receiving that healing.
Yes.
So it's absolutely, you can't sort of give the healing without receiving the healing. So it feels great.
It does sound perfect. So we've started with speaking and gone on fascinating tangents. Um, then the healing qualities of the spoken voice. And you sort of begun to touch on that with vowels. And we teach a lot in our course about how vowels carry meaning and vowels carry feeling and consonants carry the meaning. So if someone's ready to move on from, okay, yes, my voice is an instrument to verbally cue yoga. Okay, now still in a spoken sense, my voice is an instrument to develop meaning, feeling, and energy spoken during shavasana, during meditation, or even just in the transmission of asana that's beyond instruction. How does somebody start to consider their voice as an instrument in that way without feeling, oh, I'm putting on a yoga voice, I'm putting on a silly voice?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I would say this is the part where we have to start to engage in um, what's going to feel to some like singing. It's not really, because we're not doing it for entertainment and we're not putting words on it and we're just, using vowels. But this is where we leave the speech behind to a certain extent, and we need to start to work with pure tone. We need to start here to connect to this breath control, the diaphragmatic breathing, and start to work with a simple hum and to have a regular practice where we work with humming, vowel sounds, what I like to call vocal play, where we're working with different vowels and things, but on a spontaneous improvisatory level.
You're
So
making me nervous now.
well, this is exactly it. But I mean, would you like me to demonstrate what I
Yes,
mean?
please.
Let me just,
I'm not sure if it'll come across. Do you know how to turn on your professional musician settings?
I can do that now. Yes, if I put my original sound
Yeah,
on, that should work. So if I make a long sound, just tell me if it cuts out. So,
yeah. Perfect.
ooh. Okay. So the most simple, it's going to echo a little bit now. I don't know if you're hearing that your end, but I'll just do it
Yeah.
quickly just to give an idea. So the most simple thing is to come back to a hum. So for that, literally connecting to the breath, even closing your eyes if it feels uncomfortable, breathing. And it's not about making lots of noise. It's not about, I've got to
Yeah.
push my voice. It's about, can I just start to work with this gentle hum, gentle vibration? This is your authentic sound. So from this place, stuff might come up, oh, you're singing, oh, you're doing it. But I would start with 5 minutes of humming every
Yeah.
day as a practice, as a dedicated practice. And then you might go into an R sound. So we might start with and then ah, tongue forward, ha. And you can feel it's raw sound. I'm not
Yeah.
putting my opera sound on. I'm not putting it. There's nothing else there. It's just
Yeah.
ah, and it's going to reflect me on this any given day. So I can't do that and plan an amazing sound. Whatever's going to come out is going to come
Mm.
out. And that's
That's
part
very
of
interesting that you said that it's going to reflect you on any given day. So it's almost like a benchmarker. And I really noticed that with my Brahmari B breath. Some days it's really short. And I'm like, where's my breath? And I guess that's a reflection of what's happening in my nervous system. It's like a little self check-in.
absolutely, definitely. And you'll see that in the color of the sound and the tone quality of the sound, in your ability to provide breath to the sound. Um, and then really just allowing yourself to go through different vowels. So, ooh, and you might take a different pitch. Ooh, And then you might join them together and just have a little so you're focusing just on, oh, this is my vibration. This is my sound. I'll switch my original sound back off because there's a lot of echo and I don't want it to ruin your recording.
And do you think that will affect how someone uses their spoken voice?
Definitely. So back to what we said at the beginning about, practicing and working with the voice like you would your
Mm.
body for yoga or at the gym or whatever it is. This is the beginning of removing conditioning around sound, going back to the breath and gently humming, and trying to do it in a place where you're not disturbed by other people, because people make funny comments like, "Oh, she's singing again," and it's enough to just push you back.
Yes,
And also, some of my clients, their children don't mean it, but their children will make fun
yes,
of them. And I said, come on, let's get the kids involved here. Let's all sit and hum because it's, just the act of humming. It stimulates the vagus nerve. There's so much research on just simple humming and mantra and chanting
mm,
for our well-being, and it works on such a neurological level. There's so many processes happening, so even just from that perspective it will help you to feel more relaxed around vocalizing. So it's always about
yes,
building new patterns, and we need to have that, I'm going to say sung, let's say elongated sense of using the voice to help us with the spoken. The spoken can only take us so far. We need to be able to connect those muscles we talked about, the breath. We need to be able to coordinate those breath muscles, the vocal cords, the tongue, the jaw, the muscles that like to constrict around the throat. Because I
mm,
do often hear, people coming saying, "Oh, I'm doing pure tone," and I'll hear a sort of this squeezed sound, and it's actually, then I'm like, let's take the volume back, and we're almost taking it back to nothing if it means that we're not squeezing in the throat. We're bringing
yes.
it all the way back to that fundamental sound. Like when we were babies, we didn't have any problem crying and
No,
doing,
and
making
just playing with the voice. It was fun.
it
What
was.
what does it do?
Yes, exactly that. Do you know that it's, I mean, this is another rabbit hole, isn't it? But when a baby plays with their voice and calls with their voice and wah, makes funny noises and does all this stuff, they're actually defining themselves through the sound. They're sending the sound out and it comes back. They're seeing the response they get. So if the response is always shh,
Yes,
and that's a lot of conditioning. So
yeah,
when people come even to simple humming, sometimes the release that they get from just that, it can be 40 odd years of holding that.
yeah.
Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
the release we see in kirtan is blows my mind every single time when people
exactly.
come to a space where they feel safe and comfortable to make sound.
Yes, and allowed and invited to. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so then, and this is definitely charting my journey. I was then, I always really liked chanting Om. I liked chanting in class, but it took a long, long time. Really till I was leading a chakra workshop. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have to share this because this is how I would work now with the upper chakras. I have to share this. And my voice quivered and I would just apologize. Um, but I think I've just always mind over mattered over a slow period of time. How can someone make that step if they've been chanting Om in their personal practice, they've been using mantra, maybe on a course? How do they take that first step of introducing chanting, which then comes from the spoken voice into more of a sounded singing voice? How do they make that step?
It's a very good question, and I'm working at the moment with a couple of yoga teachers to do this, to bring voice into their and chanting in a more formal sense into their classes. Um, and I wish I could just say there was a quick answer I could give to this, but I think we've worked quite methodically through a process here in this session about first of all, just having a little look about what's going on in the body, checking out where you're holding tension and what you're doing. So you're creating awareness. And then practicing the humming, the toning, and then
Yes.
bring that onto your ohms and bring that into your chants. And this is the singing teacher, I guess, part of me. But you wouldn't turn up to a yoga class without having practiced for, I don't know, a year or whatever, your whole life. You will always practice. I mean, you're a teacher, so you're doing the yoga all the time anyway. But everything is a practice. So I think if you're bringing something to people, you need to feel very comfortable with it yourself to a certain extent. There's always going to be that moment where, like you said, okay, I'm just going to step in. I've done the work at home. I've sat and I've toned the vocal toning that we just did then. I've practiced this mantra, I've practiced these chants. I've done a bit of work on my voice. I've got a few sort of warm up things that I do. I've worked on my breath. It's not up here. And I'm ready now to share this with people. So I think it's about really, if you're serious about bringing that sacred sound, and it is
Yeah.
sacred sound. So,
Yes.
it's not a performance. And I think this is the problem because as soon as you get into this idea of, oh, I've got to perform to my class, that teaching is a performance.
That I can only share mantra or chanting if I have a nice voice.
Yes. And
Yes,
and
because I must sound good, but it's not about me.
no, this is the thing. It's not about us. When it comes to working with these sacred sounds, we're the vessel for that. And so, really, when we're sharing that stuff, we need to have prepared the vessel. And the vessel is us, isn't it? That's that work that we need to do. And I'm not saying you've got to go off and study it for goodness knows how many years, but if you've never shared any chanting or even an om in your sessions and you're really worried about it, do, 3 or 4 weeks practice, get the voice
Maybe that
going.
hesitation is actually a guidance to embed yourself in practice first.
I agree. Yes, exactly that. And to work with the voice and within that work to step out of this idea of perfection. Because the problem is we're fed constantly, through the media, pop singers and all, different genres is fine, whatever it might be. But we are fed this very masculine chest voice sound all the time. And so people think that this strong, loud, calling sort of sound is the only sound. And I can tell you that in vocal sound healing, we go completely the other way. We bring
I've
it.
never thought about that. How just as society's taught me you need to be flexible to do yoga, or this is what a yoga body looks like. And then I can use my body, to show a difference to that, to be more inclusive, to show that anyone can have a yoga body because you have a body, anyone can do asana, it doesn't matter how flexible. But actually, can we model that in the voice that anyone can chant, anyone can sound, it doesn't matter how you sound.
Exactly. And everybody will bring something different to the table, at different stages of that realization of their sound. And some people might be, right at the beginning, but so aware of the spirituality and the energy that's coming through. So share it, and tell your students this isn't about the perfection. This is about us chanting this sacred sound. And that sacred sound is about vibration that we bring into our life. It's about healing vibration. And there's no perfection in healing except that energy that comes through us for
And
our
that sacred sound is more powerful than the person that's chanting it. It's so much bigger than us.
the sacred sound is what forms the universe. It
Mm.
is it is the universe. So, there's no place for judgment and criticism in that. There is only the chanting practice. And if you have a yoga teacher that introduces that to you, as I said, I've been working with some yoga teachers that are bringing that in, and a lot of the time the classes don't like it.
Yeah,
It's like, well, why are you here then? Because yoga is a spiritual practice.
yeah,
So what are you here for? And so
yeah,
she's got a little bit ballsy with that. She's like, well, then why are you here?
yeah,
And maybe she risks losing students because she's stepping into that true identity. And here we come all the way back to the beginning. When we step into that true identity and we resonate at that frequency for the healing of other people and for ourselves, we don't quiver. We're not
yeah,
nervous. That power
yes.
comes through.
Yeah.
People who are like-minded will come to that power, and you just have to
Yeah.
trust that. And it might be that your classes clear out for a little
Yeah,
while.
but
New people,
I don't find
you know?
that. I think, in the 15 years teaching, and there's been many an iteration of what I like to teach in that. Most of my students have stayed with me because whenever I'm like, we're going down this rabbit hole, I'll always say why.
Yeah,
And they won't follow me if I don't share a benefit or call it out. I know this might make you feel uncomfortable. It did make me feel uncomfortable, but humming, Brummery Bee Breath, Om is one of the most powerful ways to downregulate your nervous system. So, would you like to go home feeling stressed, or do you want a super pill to downregulate your nervous system? So get over it. Let's make some sound.
yeah,
And if I can bring them in and name the thing that's making someone uncomfortable and then tell them benefit, why to go through that bridge of discomfort, they
yeah,
normally come with me.
fine. And I think that's it, isn't it? It's the intention. You're back to the power of
Mm.
intention. When you have a clear intention in sound healing, intention is one of the main principles. When you have
Yeah.
that clear intention, you know why you're doing something, you can choose to do it or not. But if you're
Yes.
creating a lovely environment, then of course people tend to go along, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Or if
That's
we don't know why. Um, okay. One more level.
wow. There's another one.
Because you run the sound healing course for the College of Sound Healing. And now this is taking, and especially you run the voice, sorry, the
That's
voice
right.
aspect of the College of Sound Healing.
Yeah.
So this is now saying, yes, there's singing bowls. Yes, there's gongs. Yes, there's your Tibetan bowls. Yes, there's the beautiful chimes I see around you. But you are a walking instrument. If there's someone that's listening that's curious but is feeling super uncomfortable about the idea, which is probably where I would be. I'm really curious. I'm quite happy sharing song. We share kirtan. There's a curiosity about voice as sound healing. There's fear. um, what's the case for a yoga teacher learning to use their voice in sound healing?
Um, I think what the point you made about all the instruments, because people go, oh, I wonder if sound healing. Yeah, I'm not going with the voice. I'll start with the gong. It's nice and big. It'll protect me. And
Yeah.
buy a nice big gong, and everyone will think, oh, isn't that a lovely gong? And they want to look at me.
Yes, and it feels like it's about the gong. It's not
Yes,
about me.
exactly, exactly. So, any gong practitioner worth their salt will tell you that um, actually the sound flows through them and through the gong. So the gong amplifies the energy that they bring to the space. So there is no just banging and crashing a gong. There is still this meditative spiritual practice that we bring through and into the instruments that we use. The voice is already here with us. So we're not having to bring it through something else. We're working with that first. So if you start to work with your own voice as that instrument for healing through the toning, through the humming, all of these things we've talked about, with an intention to bring healing to yourself, first of all,
Yes.
then you are building that energy and that strength within your energy field. And then whatever else you happen to work with after that will only benefit from all of that work and that clarity that you've created in your own field as that channel for that energy. So when
That
we have
feels like a safe step to
yes,
me.
yeah,
Okay,
so
so I'm going to start to work with voice healing for like sounding the humming for myself. That feels like safe, that step.
exactly. And I think it's really about, so for example, on the course that I'm running, we've got an online starting in June and an in-person starting in July near Chichester. And some people choose to do the online because they feel like I can just,
Yeah.
because when you're online, you sound in your own space without anybody
Yes.
else, but obviously you're being guided on the screen. And other
Yes.
people are like, no, absolutely not. I need to be with people and do this with somebody else.
Yes. I'm
And
not sure which it is. I
we're,
did my Sanskrit online, which I loved because I could mute and make silly sounds and get it wrong. I felt I really loved that.
yeah,
But I feel like I need to hear the vibration of other people to get the full transmission of the sound healing.
Yes, yeah. And do you know, I think it would literally just come down to whatever you feel and to honor that. And the one thing when we start to work with voice for healing is about developing our intuition, our voice as a guide, that inner voice, and sort of discerning between the inner voice, the quiet voice of intuition. What do I feel? What is my heart telling me versus what is my ego mind telling me? So, if your heart is, oh, no, I really need to be on my own, then online is great. But the in-person work, when we start to sit together, we warm the body up, we get all the intention, the whys, the wherefores, all of that, so everyone's clear about why they're there and what they're going to achieve and why they're doing it, and taking this incredibly brave step. When they're sounding together for the first time, humming, we all just hum as a group, and this sound just courses around the room, this gentle hum. People just, they cannot believe the power of the voice, and it is heart opening. So we always say with this work, you'll come to it when you're ready. If when we start to open the heart and we start to feel that energy of the heart opening, it can bring emotions up, it can bring
Yeah.
stuff to the surface. And perhaps, not everyone's ready to go there, and that's fine, it's okay. But I think it all happens in stages, and people come from different walks of life and different, all sorts of. Some people are performers like myself that have sung their whole life and they go, wow, I've never felt anything like this. I've been performing my whole life, but I've never
Yeah.
felt this. And other people sort of barely croak a hum and they're still like, wow, I did it. And the
Yeah.
sound with other people was just incredible. So I would say it's stepping into a very safely held environment.
Mm.
And I've been teaching this for 10 years now, and I know that people need to be held. And it's just finding that I keep it very light-hearted, very grounded and fun. That we need to feel we can just be and play like children. And
It's so true.
if you never experienced that sense of play as a child, it might be the first time that you're allowed.
Mm.
And the joy, the
And
sheer
knowing that you
joy,
can do important work and it be fun.
yeah, and take it out
Important
with
doesn't
a
mean it has to be
student.
serious.
No, exactly. No, and far from it. This is the thing that, of course there's reverence around sacred sound. Of course there is. But, some of the energy that when the energy is released, it can either make you laugh or cry.
Mm.
The diaphragm doesn't know the difference. Laughing or crying, it's the same
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
So it's bringing this understanding, I think, to, your students, if you're a yoga teacher, bringing it to your children at home, bringing this sense of non-judgment, this inclusiveness through sound.
Mm.
The voice is part of who we are. We cannot get away from it.
We could go to, if we have children, you could go to that point where a child first forms a judgment whether it can or can't sing. We could stop that the moment. What a different experience it would be.
Yes.
Um, I have stalked your website, looking for, well, two websites. You've got two websites, yours and then the one which is the
Main
workshop.
one. Yes. Yeah.
So there's lots of things on there that caught my eye. First off, you actually have a free introductory video, a free video workshop. So if someone just wanted to do a video workshop, I think I saw one.
Yes, there's various YouTube things and information
Yeah.
done. Yes, there is I think the video courses, one of them is on a very special offer at the moment, which just helps people to dive in.
Yes.
But there's loads of information on there, and there's chants, and there's all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
then you had some just workshops coming up. There's a taster workshop, a taster weekend, but
Yeah.
you have a Monday and a Friday online mantra chanting meditation class. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So I call it voice for well-being because it literally
Mm.
is whatever state you're in, it's voice for well-being. And yeah, Monday at 8:15 for 45 minutes or Friday at 6 p.m. for 45 minutes. And we start with just some gentle movement, just unwinding. We go into some vocal toning in a meditative sense. So we're not sounding to each other, we're just closing our eyes and gently sounding, getting to know the voice. There is a meditation with that, and then we have a mantra each week. We work on different mantras over the quarter, so people really get to, you don't just work with one mantra.
Yes.
Sorry, you don't just work with a mantra once. You
Yes, you get to know it.
exactly. Um,
They
and
sounded beautiful, and they sound when you talk about sort of sitting at home and starting to make sound yourself, it feels like a nice guided way to do it. So I will definitely be coming to one of those. I'm already signed up to a yoga class this evening, but I will definitely be coming to one of those. And then you obviously have the workshops, but it really is the upcoming courses that caught my eye. So you have the June online
that's right.
sound
Yes.
healing through
So
voice course and the July in-person course. And these are with the College of Sound Healing. So
that's right.
when you finish them, would you be able to put on an event as a qualified accredited sound healer through voice?
That's right. So if you decide that, wow, this is a huge step and you want to just dive in, but you only want to dive in for a weekend, you can take part one as a standalone workshop, and
Yeah.
that will just open up the world to you. And there's loads of information, loads of different things we do. And that's, yeah, in person and online in June. The dates are on the website, 20th, 21st, and in person in Bosham, beautiful Green Door Centre in Bosham near Chichester, part one weekend there, 5th and 6th of July. But if you think, yes, this is for me, then the whole course is 5 parts. And we work mainly on one-to-one healing protocols. We learn to work over somebody's body, or it can be transferred to just working with somebody, but for the course, over somebody's body as a therapeutic modality. And that would give you a diploma, an accredited diploma, to be a professional sound healer, and allow you to take voice into, all different environments and working with that, as well as instruments and things as well. With all of these things, there are add-on workshops that you can do.
Yes.
So, for example, tomorrow I'm leading a workshop to vocal sound healing and groups, but the people that are attending are already working on the voice course, so they're adding this as a little extra. So yes, it's a very sort of flexible way of working, and at the end of the year or 2 years, however long you decide to take the course, you come out the other end usually very happy using your voice, convinced of the healing power of it. And I would say it's quite life shifting. When we start working with our own voice, we move our own energy. So yeah, people tend to be very different from part one to part five, and just
Yes.
wow.
Yes. And you get to
What has
witness
happened?
that. That's such a privilege.
Yes, no, I feel very blessed to do this work, so I'm not going anywhere.
Well, thank you so much for
My pleasure.
sharing. Huge takeaway points for me. The reflex points in the mouth, I'm just going to have to go down a rabbit hole. I think I've also taken away, I probably don't look after my instrument as I should. I definitely take my voice for granted. Um, and I need to look after my instrument better. So maybe I need to come and work with you on that. I definitely push my voice and suffer for it later, especially with kirtan. I'll use my voice to give cover to everybody else and bring in energy, and I might. So it's easier, but I feel vocally strained the next day.
Okay.
So I need to come work with you on that. I need to look after the instrument. I need to go look at reflex points. Just hearing your passion for the sacred power of sound and the healing is very, very inspiring. And yeah, a million things I've learned. I would love to work with you. Again, I would love to have a conversation, invite you to come to teach training. We've got an advanced teacher training coming up called Devotion, which is, I'd love to work with you in that on voice, but we can explore that. I will leave 2 website links for Alexandra in both the Spotify notes, on all of the social media, and in the Facebook group, because there's 2 websites.
Yeah, I would just stay with the Sound and Voice Healing Studio.
Okay.
I did use my name for the other one because it's my name on there and people often search my name. But the
Yes.
Sound and Voice Healing Studio is the one that holds.
Okay.
You'll just end up going over there anyway. So
Okay. I will share the links to that. And I feel so honored to have met you. And I feel so excited to have brought you hopefully to some people that hadn't yet met you. I know many a person in my mind that I think will be loving listening to this session. So thank you very much.
so it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. To our wonderful people in the Yoga Teach Collaborative, thank you so very much for joining us. I hope this has been educational, informative, inspiring. As always, let us know your comments, reach out, let us know how you get on. Otherwise, bye for now, my loves.